in your kitchen pantry? Today I want to share with you some of my favorite herbs and spices and flavors that I use in Mother Dear's cookbook. And growing up in the South, I think a lot of people, maybe not a lot of people, but in our family, we call our mom Mother Dear. And that was an endearing term that we used all the time just to show her how much we really, really loved her. So I'm going to share with you some of the different flavors and spices that I used in preparing a lot of the dishes found in Mother Dear's cookbook. Okay, so we'll briefly go through these. Of course, there is always your basic salt and pepper. And Morton's salt and pepper is fine. I know other people use other types of salts, and that's fine too. So make sure you have your salt and pepper to season your dishes. And there's also white pepper. And as far as some of the spices that I use, I use a lot of ground nutmeg. Now, to give you a secret, what I used to do and growing up, my mom would have us actually take a nutmeg, and we had a nutmeg grater, and we would grate the nutmeg, and it smells so wonderful. Then I kind of got lazy over the years, and I would just go out and just buy nutmeg. But if you get a chance, find you some whole nutmeg and then use the grater and grate your nutmeg, and I guarantee you your meals will taste so tasty. So I use the Watkin brand, and it's been very, very good. I use this nutmeg in a lot of my pies, like sweet potato pies, sweet potato casserole, and my sweet potato tarts. And I'll tell you a little bit about that a little later. Okay, so there's ground nutmeg. Okay, another spice that I use in a lot of my pies is ground allspice. Now, it has nutmeg in it as well, and it also has some cinnamon in it. So just be careful. You can put some in it, but if you put too much, it will turn your sweet potatoes a little dark. But we can use this ground allspice and the nutmeg in peach cobbler, sweet potato pies. It just has a wonderful flavor. So there you go. The next item that I use is cinnamon. And you can use just a little dash of cinnamon in your peach cobbler. You can use a dash in your sweet potato pies. It gives it a wonderful flavor as well. And there was one other thing, I guess I'll have to get that in a few minutes, but cream of tartar is also used. We use that in some of the sweet potato pies and banana pudding. Okay. Then we have, these are ground cayenne red pepper. You can use that on some of your meats and so forth. This crushed red pepper flakes, I use that sometimes in my collard greens. And then we have celery seed. This is a Watkin brand, it's very good. I use a little bit in my potato salad. And the paprika, sometimes I will, after I do the potato salad, I will just sprinkle a little bit on the top to give it a little garnish, and it just makes it look attractive. Okay, now we're getting to our cornbread dressing. During Thanksgiving and Christmas, we always enjoyed good old-fashioned Southern cornbread dressing. And what we use, I use a lot of poultry seasoning, and that's after I brown my cornbread and crumble it up, and then we use the broth from the turkey or a chicken, and you pour all of that in. Sage is very good to use in your dressing. And as I mentioned before, lots of poultry seasoning. And this brand is McCormick. It's a very good brand. I've also used Watkins brand. This is another brand of, it's rubbed sage. Now Watkins also have rubbed sage as well. This is a gold medal brand. So sage, poultry seasoning, all of that goes in the dressing. And this is a Sawyer's brand of poultry seasoning, so that's good as well. I think I mentioned the cream of tartar earlier. This is the cream of tartar that I use in the banana pudding to make that topping, and a little dash of it also in sweet potato pie. Okay, now let's get to the bacon part. Well, I'm going to go back to maybe our flavors before I get to the bacon. Okay, I use a lot of pure vanilla, and this is a Watkins brand, and I use it in sweet potato pies, peach cobbler, bread pudding, cakes, and my sister and I put a little twist to our cakes and so forth. Instead of just using vanilla, we also use maybe a teaspoon of lemon, and this is a McCormick brand. It's good as well. And we also use orange flavor, and this is a orange flavor that is a Watkins brand. I also use Watkins lemon, that brand as well. So remember, all of these can be used in baking your pies and and your cakes. It just makes it smell so good. Okay. Getting back to the baking, I make rolls, homemade southern rolls, and these they never fail because I also use Clever Girl baking powder. Now there are other brands of baking powder that you can use. Calumet is one, and when I was growing up, I used this Clever Girl. My mom used this a lot. Okay, so as far as the yeast, I always use this original active dry Fleischmann's. Now you can also use Fleischmann's Rapid Rise, and I was talking to my sister the other day, and she told me that she likes to use this brand, but I use this as well. Either one is very good, but one of the secrets, and the recipe is in my cookbook, one of the secrets is adding some baking powder. Okay, so that's the bacon part. All right, one thing I wanted to share with you is around Christmas time or special occasions, or Juneteenth, as a matter of fact, people baked red velvet cake. And I really love making red velvet cake. It's a very simple cake. Again, it's in the cookbook. So I use 2 bottles of McCormick red food color. Now you can use another brand if you like, but this one is good. Of course, soda goes in it, and salt. And also this Hershey Cocoa blend, special dark, that goes in the cake as well. You have to mix the color, the cocoa, and a little vinegar in that ingredient for the dough part. And then of course there's the eggs, and my favorite oil is Wesson. I love to use Wesson oil in red velvet cake. So when I do my cake, I usually do layers, and I make sure that I use wax paper for that as well in the bottom of the pan. My mom taught me that to just cut the wax paper out so to keep it from sticking. A lot of people may use flour and butter to put around it to keep it from sticking. Another thing that is really good to keep your cake from sticking, especially a bundt cake, is Baker's Joy. You just use it liberally in the pan. It is wonderful, and your cakes will come out looking really nice. Okay, now, in the kitchen, you always want to make sure you have your granulated sugar for your cakes and pies, and I use this confectioner sugar, And brown sugar is used in my sweet potato casserole. I didn't put that out, but anyway, you just make sure you have that in your pantry. A few years ago, around Thanksgiving, I was just really frustrated because I could not find any self-rising meal. So this year, I decided to go out early because I went to a couple of stores and I could not find any self-rising meal. The self-rising is wonderful because you don't have to add salt or soda or anything like that to it. It's already mixed in. But this is a Martha White version. It's hot rise and it's self-rising. And the trick to good cornbread is, of course, you're gonna have your buttermilk. And sometimes you can't find very good buttermilk. The Bulgarian brand is very good. This reminds you of the old-fashioned buttermilk that I grew up on. It's really, really good because the other brand is not as thick. So I use buttermilk in my cornbread. I use 1 egg. And then also, after it's all mixed together, I also add sugar to it to give it a little flavor. And I will melt just a little, maybe a tablespoon of butter, and add just a tablespoon or so of Western oil and melt it. And then I mix it in the batter. And then I want to make sure that I usually have a cast iron skillet, or I use muffin tins to bake my cornbread. But for the dressing, I'll use a cast iron skillet, and I will actually pour a portion of the butter and the Western oil in the bottom of the pan. Let it get warm really good. And then after I mix this up, I pour it in there, the batter in it. So that gives a good crust at the bottom of your pan for your cornbread. So this is a very good thing to use and have in your pantry. Another thing that I was told about from my sister, and I've gotten a lot of advice from her, I use this Martha White yellow cornmeal mix, it's self-rising, to fry fish. And it just makes it a golden brown. So after I clean it and wash it off and put my salt and pepper on it, and I'll coat it with yellow cornmeal. It's very, very good. And also I don't have my all-purpose flour, but for my all-purpose flour, I use with this, with my rolls. For my crispy biscuits, I use Gold Medal self-rising flour. And I always make sure that I use buttermilk in this particular recipe. And you have to have your favorite little tools, your biscuit cutter and your rolling pin. And on the counter, I just put some of the wax paper out so I can roll out the dough on that. But this is very good. Gold Medal is self-rising flour to make your biscuits. Okay, I think I've gone through pretty much everything, but I did want to share with you this Ready Crust Keebler graham cracker crust is really wonderful for sweet potato tarts. And the recipe is in the book. And after you mix up your sweet potatoes, you just put them in this, in the graham cracker crust, and you can use a topping if you like. And that topping consists of butter, brown sugar, and flour, and walnuts, or pecans if you like. But you have to get that and make sure that they're crushed walnuts or pecans, and mix it all together until it's crumbly, and you put that on top. And another twist that I found to be a good thing to use the graham cracker crust for is banana pudding tarts. So you just use this basic crust, and you make the filling. The filling is in the recipe book. Put that filling in, add bananas, top with some vanilla wafers, and a little whipping cream. And there you go, you got banana pudding tarts. And these are individual, you can serve them individually to your guests for different holidays, Christmas, Thanksgiving, whatever the occasion. So I just wanted to make sure that you can prepare some wonderful meals with just these basic items. You don't have to be fancy and all of that. And I've seen lots and lots of chefs with fancy foods and everything, but you can have just these basic things here and you will prepare a wonderful, wonderful feast. And your family will really enjoy it. And I'm sure that you will just love it. So what's in your pantry? Take an inventory of what you've got in there and just go to the store and stock up on the basic things that you need. And these are things, growing up in the South, I was able to make sure that I learned from my mom and I paid attention to the different ingredients that she used for seasoning her food. So that's what the key is, the seasoning in the food. So if you bring it home and prepare it and there's no seasoning, I remember my grandson told me he sampled sweet potato casserole once. And he was immediately able to determine that, he said, Mimi, this sweet potato casserole doesn't have any nutmeg in it. Well, he knew that I use lots of nutmeg in my sweet potato casserole. So again, try these different, you can try all kinds of seasoning and spices, but these are just some of the basic ones that will get you by and make sure that, your family will love the meals that you prepare. So, happy eating.